This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, May 15th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump lavishly welcomed by Qatari officials. I'm Clayton Neville.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faced questions from Congress. Ed Donahue, Washington.
California Governor Gavin Newsom laid out a nearly $322 billion state spending plan for the upcoming fiscal year. I'm Donna Warder.
On Wall Street, Boeing gets a huge order for new planes with the help of President Trump. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
U.S. overdose deaths fell 27% last year, but are still above pre-pandemic levels. I'm Haya Panjwani.
California's top insurance regulator has approved a home insurance rate hike. I'm Ben Thomas.
All ahead on America in the Morning. President Trump met with leaders of Qatar and Syria as part of the second leg of his trip to the Middle East. Following the president's trip abroad, Correspondent Clayton Neville.
It was a lavish welcome for President Trump in Doha as the president touted the partnership between the U.S. and Qatar.
We're pleased to supply your military with billions and billions of dollars in brand new equipment.
Ahead of a state dinner, the president spoke about the effort to get a nuclear deal done with Iran to ramp down its nuclear program.
It's a perilous situation, and we want to do the right thing.
The country's announced a $200 billion deal for Qatar to buy 160 jets from Boeing, and President Trump said that he planned to accept a plane from Qatar to be used as Air Force One. That caused controversy in Washington, some Democrats calling that a personal gift and calling for Congress to approve it. The Qatari prime minister was asked about that by CNN.
Well, it is a government-to-government transaction. It has nothing to do with personnel, whether it's on the U.S. side or on the Qatari side. It's the Ministry of Defense, the Department of Defense. So I don't see anything.
President Trump yesterday also met with the interim leader in Syria a day after the president announced plans to lift sanctions on that country. I'm Clayton Neville.
Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr. testified before Congress. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports he was defending recent cuts to the agency's workforce.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. faced questions from Congress about policy changes in his department. Kennedy's budget includes deep cuts to infectious disease prevention, medical research, and maternal health, and a boost to his Make America Healthy Again initiative.
The United States remains the sickest developed nation in the world, and we spend $4.5 trillion annually on health care.
Kennedy called downsizing necessary cost cutting. He also refused to recommend parents follow the nation's childhood vaccination schedule.
None of them have been safety tested in pre-licensing studies against a placebo.
One senator pointed out 3 of the vaccines were tested in a placebo study. Vermont Independent Bernie Sanders pointed out,
under your leadership, you have undermined the vital role vaccines play in preventing disease during the single largest measles outbreak in 25 years.
There are measles cases in 11 states. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Once banned, then restored, abortion rights in Missouri face new challenges. Correspondent Jennifer King explains.
It's been just 6 months since Missouri voters approved an abortion rights amendment guaranteeing the right to the procedure up until fetal viability, sometime after 21 weeks of pregnancy. Now state lawmakers have passed a measure that could overturn that amendment, placing a new referendum on the 2026 ballot that would ban most abortions, with exceptions up to 12 weeks for rape or incest or for a medical emergency. Missouri's Republican senators uncorked a rarely used maneuver known as calling the previous question, or a PQ, to block discussion by opposing Democrats. Just after the vote, protesters erupted with chants of "Stop the ban" and were ushered out of the Senate chamber. Republicans used the same maneuver to push through a bill repealing another law passed in November that required paid sick leave and indexing the minimum wage to inflation. Republicans said the procedure was the only way to break through a Democratic logjam, while Democrats warned that months of goodwill had been destroyed. I'm Jennifer King.
The top stories of the day are sponsored by Sleep Number. Sleep better with Sleep Number. Now, during the Memorial Day sale, all smart beds and bases are on sale. Plus, free home delivery, exclusively at a Sleep Number store. Planned attack on a domestic army base thwarted. That story when America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning, and we're just a couple weeks away from the start of hurricane season, June 1st. Here's today's forecast with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Another day of hot and dry conditions in parts of the Southwest does favor a continued heightened risk for the ignition and spread of fires today. Strong winds develop during the day across much of New Mexico, the area around which today's highest risk for fires should be centered. However, any areas of dry brush may be worth monitoring from eastern Arizona into the Oklahoma and Texas panhandles, the Big Bend of Texas, and mainly eastern portions of Colorado, all areas where very low humidity will create dangerous fire potential. Another zone of very different dangerous conditions emerges over parts of the north today in the form of severe thunderstorms, with a multi-day severe weather event eventually reaching parts of the east coast and the interior south by Saturday. For today, a cold front pushing into very warm to hot air setting up over parts of the Midwest and Ohio River Valley will mean that thunderstorms may turn severe this afternoon and tonight from Minnesota southward to eastern Iowa and northeastern Arkansas, across the Great Lakes states and even into western Pennsylvania and far western New York overnight, bringing the risk for flooding downpours, hail, very strong winds, and even some tornadoes. This sets up for Friday's risk centered on the Ohio Valley, which has the potential to turn into a severe weather outbreak. One more busy weather zone today will be the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast, where a slow-moving storm finally makes some progress toward and eventually off the coast. Until it does so, there can be at least spotty showers and thunderstorms from the coastal Carolinas northward through most of New England. Only central and eastern Maine stand a decent shot at being dry through the daylight hours, as does much of the southern third or so of the nation. In Chicago, a breezy and very warm day with sun and clouds leads to late day and evening severe storms after a high of 86. For Phoenix, sunshine, a high of 91. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. The FBI says it broke up a plan to attack an Army site in Michigan. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer has details.
Federal authorities say that 19-year-old Ammar Abdul-Majid Mohammed Saeed has been charged with planning a deadly attack on a U.S. military base in suburban Detroit. The FBI says the man was planning a mass shooting at the Army's Tank Automotive and Armaments Command in Warren, Michigan, for ISIS. 2 FBI employees working undercover recorded their meetings with Saeed, including handwritten diagrams of the site. Saeed was a recent member of the Michigan Army National Guard and was arrested shortly after launching a drone sent up for a final look before an attack. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
California is facing a multi-billion-dollar budget shortfall. Correspondent Donna Warder reports it's forcing Governor Newsom to find some ways to slash spending.
California Governor Gavin Newsom laid out a nearly $322 billion state spending plan for the upcoming fiscal year, saying the state is staring down a $12 billion budget deficit, partly because of the economic uncertainty of President Donald Trump's tariffs and a volatile stock market.
The revenue that came in from January through April exceeded our expectation by $7.9 billion. The economy of California was humming. An additional $7.9 billion above our projections we were collecting. That has significantly changed.
Newsom says the shortfall is also because of an expanding state Medicaid budget. And to address some of the deficit, he's proposing freezing new signups for California's Medi-Cal program for adult immigrants in the U.S. illegally, starting in 2026. I'm Donna Warder.
In sports, from the NBA Conference semifinals, the Boston Celtics beat the New York Knicks 127-102. Game 6 in that matchup is scheduled for tomorrow night. Trump's Mideast visit sends Boeing stock skyward. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. And for the Thursday market update, CNBC's Jessica Ettinger is in.
Wall Street opens this morning after a mixed day for the markets. The S&P 500 index slightly higher for the year. The Dow and the Nasdaq are still negative for 2025. Nvidia shares turned positive for the year, the third company in that Magnificent Seven group to do so. Facebook parent Meta and Microsoft are also trading above break even right now. Boeing shares ticked higher on what President Trump is calling the biggest 787 Dreamliner jet order ever for the company.
This is a huge one that's coming out of Qatar, announced by the president today. And essentially, it's 210 wide-body jets, up to 210. I think the official firm order is 160. The remaining 50 are options that could be exercised by Qatar Air. And for GE Aerospace, this is also a big deal because, A, it's the primary engine provider when it comes to the 787 Dreamliner.
CNBC's Phil LeBeau. Netflix says its ad tier now has 94 million monthly active users. This is the cheapest option for a subscription at $8 a month in the U.S. It's far more than analysts had expected. Warner Brothers Discovery is bringing back HBO Max. CNBC's Carl Quintanilla and David Faber explain.
The company says its Max streaming service will be rebranded as HBO Max this summer. CEO David Zaslav says, quote, "Today we're bringing back HBO, the brand that represents the highest quality in media, to further accelerate that growth in the years ahead." Reversion to the HBO brand, David, which was seen as so powerful for so many years.
Yeah, well, of course, when they went with Max, that raised a lot of questions. There were no shortage of people saying, why wouldn't you have stuck with HBO to begin with, given how much that brand resonates, particularly in terms of high-end production.
Look what's picking up. The spring home buying market, which has been rotten for the most part. Are would-be home buyers back out there?
I will say they're back. They are not flooding the market. Remember, we're coming off of what was kind of the worst March in over 20 years for home sales. Mortgage demand from home buyers is taking a turn higher. 2 weeks of gains in May after demand fell for most of April. An agent in Cleveland said, "I have seen 3 times more buyers in the past 2 weeks than in the past few months." Now, maybe buyers are feeling better about the tariff talks and the stock market rebound. Maybe they're seeing they have more negotiating power. We do know that inventory at the end of April was up 18% year over year nationally, according to Redfin. So there's a lot more out there, and buyers are clearly responding.
CNBC's Diana Olick. On today's watch list, we get the latest on inflation at the wholesale level. That's the PPI, Producer Price Index. Earnings are coming from a biggie, Walmart, and the second golf major of the year begins this morning with the PGA Championship in Charlotte, North Carolina.
The weather forecast there today calls for sunshine and 86 degrees. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger with Thursday Business. A top European court has ruled in favor of the New York Times in a lawsuit over access to text messages sent by the European Commission president. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
The court case highlights ongoing questions about transparency at the Commission, which insists that text messages and other ephemeral electronic communications do not necessarily constitute documents of interest that should be saved or made public. Nicole Taylor for the NYT says that the decision is a victory for transparency, sending a powerful message that ephemeral communications are not beyond the reach of public scrutiny. The US newspaper's lawyers had succeeded in rebutting the presumption of non-existence and of non-possession of the requested documents, according to a statement from the General Court of Luxembourg. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
You're with America in the Morning. When we return, homeowners' insurance rates climb. One state's reason after these messages. This is America in the Morning. New statistics regarding overdose deaths in the U.S. With the numbers, here's correspondent Haya Panjwani.
U.S. overdose deaths fell 27% last year, but are still above pre-pandemic levels. There were 30,000 fewer U.S. drug overdose deaths in 2024 than the year before. That's the largest one-year decline ever recorded. The previous largest one-year drop was 4% in 2018. All but 2 states saw declines last year, with some of the biggest in Ohio and West Virginia. Experts say more research needs to be done to understand what drove the reduction, but they believe there were several possible factors. That could include the increased availability of the overdose-reversing drug naloxone, more addiction treatment, and the growing impact of billions of dollars in opioid lawsuit settlement money. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Home insurance rates in California are going up. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports the change comes after several costly wildfires in the Golden State.
California's top insurance regulator has approved a home insurance rate hike. Insurance Commissioner Ricardo Lara says State Farm can raise premiums by 17% for all its customers in the state to help the insurer rebuild its capital following January's wildfires in Los Angeles. State Farm has argued the emergency rate hikes are needed to avoid what it describes as a dire financial crisis that could force it to drop more California homeowner policies. State Farm has agreed to halt non-renewals through the end of this year. The new rates start in June and include a 38% hike for rental owners and 15% for tenants. I'm Ben Thomas.
Observed each year on this date, Peace Officers Memorial Day, a day to pay tribute to local, state, and federal law enforcement officers who've made the ultimate sacrifice or have been injured in the line of duty. Thank you for your service. America in the Morning for Thursday, May 15th, 2025 is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Some Republicans sparring over Medicaid. I'm Clayton Neville.
Protesters interrupt the hearing, and then Senate Democrats spar with HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm Rich Johnson.
California's proposed budget calls for a freeze on health care for undocumented immigrants. I'm Bob Brown.
Amazon to help Saudi Arabia set up AI. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Robert De Niro lays into President Trump at the Cannes Film Festival. I'm Kevin Carr.
Engineers who work for New Jersey Transit are threatening to walk off the job early Friday. I'm Donna Warder.
Back after these messages. Republicans in the House are advancing legislation to cut Medicaid, and it's not sitting well with all members of the GOP. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
House Republicans are including $880 billion in cuts to Medicaid to help foot the bill for President Trump's One Big Beautiful bill that focuses on clean energy and lowering taxes. House Speaker Mike Johnson told reporters this week that they're enabling Democrats by leaving out facts surrounding proposed cuts.
We said repeatedly we are protecting Medicaid for the people who need and deserve it. This program is an essential lifeline for our most vulnerable Americans, pregnant women, single mothers, low-income seniors, the disabled. That's who Medicaid is intended to be for, and that's who we're protecting, while we're eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse to improve Medicaid.
Republican Congressman Eric Burleson said at the end of the day, we have a $2 trillion deficit, and said we're shuffling chairs on top of the Titanic. Some say the math just doesn't add up. Republican Congressman Andy Harris compared the cuts to a parent telling their 25-year-old living in the basement, you've got to get a job and move out, but I'll give you 4 years to do it. Congressman Dusty Johnson among the House Republicans trying to clear the air on the proposed cuts.
And so let me just correct for the record some of the things that my colleagues have said. The gentleman from Georgia said that this bill is cruel to seniors. Let me be clear. Seniors are unaffected by this legislation. The gentlewoman from Connecticut said that this bill takes food from our most vulnerable. Let me be clear again, because there has been so much misinformation. If you are a pregnant woman, your benefits are unaffected. If you have young children at home, your benefits are unaffected by this bill. If you are disabled, your benefits are unaffected by this bill.
Johnson told CNN that work requirements in the bill, which have received pushback, are critical.
We know in South Dakota that we have work requirements for able-bodied young people who aren't pregnant, who don't have any disabilities, who don't have young people at home. We have those work requirements today in place on SNAP, on TANF, and we know they work. And we know that very few people get kicked off those programs because state government knows they have to have skin in the game. They have to help these folks find jobs or volunteer or be in a training program or go to school.
Now, a recent report from the Congressional Budget Office estimates that millions of Americans could lose their health care coverage under recent Republican proposals. I'm Clayton Neville.
It took a while for Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to explain his department's new priorities during a Senate hearing. Correspondent Rich Johnson says Kennedy was interrupted by a protester and lawmakers.
Kennedy wasn't 2 minutes into his opening statement to the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee.
The budget I'm presenting today supports these goals and reflects...
About a dozen people chanted, "RFK kills people with hate." Capitol police officers eventually got them out of the hearing room, and at least 7 were reportedly arrested. When things calmed down in the audience, they got heated on the rostrum as senators grilled Kennedy about cuts in research funding, Medicare information services, autism, rising rates of chronic disease, mass layoffs throughout HHS, and more. But one of the most heated exchanges was with Connecticut Democrat Chris Murphy, who accused Kennedy of, well, saying he favors the measles vaccine.
But you have consistently been undermining the measles vaccine. You told the public that the vaccine wanes very quickly. You went on the Dr. Phil show and said that the measles vaccine was never fully tested for safety. You said there's fetal debris in the measles vaccine. And this morning...
All true.
This morning in
Do
front
you want
of...
me to lie to the public?
That's not... None of that is...
Of course it's true. Of course it's true, Senator. Senator, making your progress, you do not know what you're talking about.
The more than 2-hour hearing spent very little time on its stated purpose, examining the Trump administration's proposal to cut the HHS budget by more than 26% in the next fiscal year. I'm Richard Johnson.
At least one person has died in flooding caused by heavy rain in the Mid-Atlantic region. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
Officials found the body of a 12-year-old boy who was swept away by rushing water on a Virginia roadway during a storm system that also forced a dozen students to stay overnight at a Maryland high school due to heavy rains that led to flooding in several states in the region. A 911 caller reported Tuesday night that the boy was walking outside when he was swept away by water that overtook the roadway from a nearby creek in Virginia. The body of what is believed to be Jordan Sims was found by search crews Wednesday morning. Officials are asking residents to take caution. While rain has tapered off a bit, the ground is still very saturated, and it will not take much rain to cause problems. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Democrat attempts to impeach President Trump, and Gavin Newsom's about face on undocumented immigrants when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. A House Democrat is attempting to impeach President Trump. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports their efforts are getting pushback from within the Democrat Party.
Michigan Sri Tanadar's effort is likely to fail.
Those who are asking me, is this the right time to do it? I say it's never the wrong time to do the right thing.
Tanadar says as an immigrant, he wants to do all he can to protect the Constitution and the country's institutions.
President Donald J. Trump has been committing crimes since day one.
The resolution has been criticized by fellow Democrats, including California's Pete Aguilar.
Right now, our focus is on health care being stripped away from the American people. That is the most urgent and dire thing that we could be talking about this week. Everything else is a distraction.
Aguilar called the proposal not ripe and not timely. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Well, some believe California Governor Gavin Newsom is turning his back on undocumented immigrants in need of health care. Correspondent Bob Brown has that story.
California Governor Gavin Newsom introducing his proposed budget plan Wednesday, which surprisingly is freezing benefits for undocumented immigrants. The Democrat who may be running for president in 2028 needs to close a $12 billion deficit in the proposed $322 billion spending plan.
The one thing we can't is approach a balanced budget unless we address the costs of Medicaid or Medi-Cal.
Newsom blames President Trump's tariffs as the cause for the multi-billion-dollar shortfall, which would freeze enrollment for undocumented adults. However, the changes would apply only to new applicants over 19 years old. Current participants would not be dropped from their plans, including participants who have limited coverage for emergencies and pregnancies. The freeze would take effect next year, which also includes a $100 monthly premium for adults 19 and older with unsatisfactory immigration status. Meantime, congressional Republicans are calling for a 10% cut in Medicaid funding. I'm Bob Brown.
South Carolina's Supreme Court has made a decision on that state's abortion law. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports the ruling was over the meaning of some medical language.
The South Carolina Supreme Court has ruled that the state can keep banning abortions around 6 weeks after conception. The justices unanimously ruled that while the medical language in the 2023 law was vague, supporters and opponents of the law all seem to think it banned abortions after 6 weeks. That was until Planned Parenthood lost its challenge to the entire law 2 years ago. The law says abortions can't be performed after an ultrasound can detect cardiac activity or the steady, repetitive, rhythmic contraction of the fetal heart. The state argued that is the moment when an ultrasound detects cardiac activity. Planned Parenthood said the words after the "or" mean the ban should only start after the major parts of the heart come together, which is often around 9 weeks. I'm Haya Panjwani.
Mexico's president is reacting to a plan to tax the money immigrants send home from the U.S. Correspondent Jennifer King has details.
Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is calling on Republicans on Capitol Hill to reconsider a measure in the big tax bill. It adds a 5% excise tax on remittances, the money sent by international workers in the United States back to their home countries. It would not apply to U.S. citizens, but targets more than 40 million people, including green card holders and non-immigrant visa holders. At a news conference, Sheinbaum read from a letter from Mexico's Senate to U.S. legislators, calling remittances the fruits of honest work, and said the measure would damage the economies of both nations. According to the World Bank, India, Mexico, and China are the biggest recipients of those funds, with 2023 data showing over $63 billion were sent home to Mexico. Proponents say it would discourage illegal immigration, while experts warn it could harm communities that depend on the money and drive more people to the U.S. looking for work. I'm Jennifer King.
Officials in Thailand say they've seized 238 tons of illegally imported electronic waste from the U.S. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma explains.
The waste, which had arrived in 10 large containers at Bangkok port, was declared as mixed metal scrap, but turned out to be circuit boards mixed in with the scrap, says the port's Director General of Customs. The authorities are looking to press charges including falsely declaring imported goods and illegally importing electronic waste against those responsible and re-export the waste back to the original country. Electronic waste is piling up worldwide and creates huge health hazards due to its components. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
Amazon announces a strategic partnership with several other tech giants to aid in setting up AI tech zones in Saudi Arabia. Correspondent Chuck Palm has more in today's Tech Report.
According to an article on TechCrunch, Amazon says it is working with Humane, an AI company recently launched by Saudi Arabia's ruler, Mohammed bin Salman, and will be investing $5 billion or more in a strategic partnership to build a Saudi Arabian AI zone. The zone will include Amazon Web Services, AI infrastructure, servers, networks, and training certification programs. Humane will develop AI solutions using Amazon Web Server technologies and providing access to tools and programs for Saudi Arabia-based AI startups. President Trump and several tech industry allies attended a U.S.-Saudi Arabia investment forum on Tuesday, including NVIDIA and AMD, and have been permitted to arrange deals with Saudi Arabian firms. The Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund has already done deals with companies like Google and Salesforce on other AI-related projects and investments. And to no one's surprise, Google and Oracle have also announced expansion plans in the region. For more, find me at chuckpalm.com.
Back in with sports this Thursday. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
NBA Conference semifinals in the West, the Timberwolves walloped the Warriors 121-110 to take that series in 5 games. Julius Randle had 29 points. Minnesota led by as many as 25 as the Wolves head back to the Western Conference Final for a second straight year. In the East, the Celtics slammed the Knicks 127-102 to stay alive. New York still leads the series 3-2. Derek White stepped up for the injured Jason Tatum with 34 points.
Got a lot of guys out here that are highly competitive, and we ain't want to see an end tonight.
Game 6 tomorrow night in New York. Stanley Cup playoff second round in the West. The Oilers outlasted the Golden Knights 1-0 in overtime to wrap up that series in 5 and become the first team to advance to the conference final, their third time there in the past 4 years. Kasperi Kapanen poked one past Aiden Hill 7 minutes into OT. Stuart Skinner 24 saves for his second straight shutout. In the East, the Panthers pasted the Maple Leafs 6-1 to go up 3-2 with Game 6 Friday in Florida. Sergei Bobrovsky came within 66 seconds of a shutout. He stopped 31 shots. Baseball, the Twins swept a pair from the Orioles 6-3 and 8-6 and have now won 10 games in a row. The Phillies and Cardinals split 2. Phil's 2-1 in the opener, snapping the Cards' 9-game winning streak. St. Louis came back in the nightcap 14-7. Tigers trimmed the Red Sox 6-5 on a walk-off pinch hit single by Justin Henry Malloy. Detroit owns the best record in the majors. Pirates blanked the Mets 4-0. 5 pitchers scattered 6 hits. Dodgers drilled the A's. Max Muncy's 3-run shot in the 8th was the 4th Dodger dinger of the night that began with a leadoff shot from Shohei Ohtani, his 13th this year. Yankees sank the Mariners on Aaron Judge's tie-breaking Tater in the 8th, number 15 on the season, tying Kyle Schwarber of the Phillies for the Major League lead. Rangers ripped the Rockies for their 5th in a row. White Sox shaded the Reds for their 3rd straight. Nationals edged the Braves to snap a 7-game slide. And the NFL schedule details are out. The Super Bowl rematch between the Eagles and the Chiefs is set for Week 2 in Kansas City, but just as a regular old afternoon game, not a primetime showcase. But fear not, between them, the Chiefs and the Eagles will be featured in at least 15 standalone games this season. That's Thursday Sports.
When we return on America in the Morning, A-list actor attempts to denigrate Donald Trump on the world stage after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. You may have seen the criticism of Donald Trump from actor Robert De Niro in the past. Now he speaks out against Trump at the Cannes Film Festival. Correspondent Kevin Carr has details.
The opening night of the 78th Cannes Film Festival got political when Robert De Niro took the stage to accept the honorary Palme d'Or, a Lifetime Achievement Award. During his speech, De Niro turned his attention to President Trump.
America's Philistine president has had himself appointed head of one of our premier cultural institutions. He has cut funding and support to the arts, humanities, and education. And now he has announced a 100% tariff on films produced outside the U.S.
Earlier this month, the president announced on social media that he planned to levy a 100% tariff on any film not made in the United States. The day after this announcement, Trump said he would consult with the movie industry before implementing his plan. For the most part, Hollywood has reacted with distaste and confusion to the president's tariff plans for movies, as is the case with De Niro.
You can't put a price on creativity, but apparently you can put a tariff on it.
On Wednesday, Variety ran a story about a visual effects artist who used to work in Hollywood and is happy about Trump's tariff plan. The story highlights the loss of jobs due to foreign subsidies and tax breaks. Don't count De Niro in this group, however. In his speech, he called for protests.
And this isn't just an American problem. It's a global one. Unlike a film, we can't just sit back and watch. We have to act, and we have to act now.
I'm Kevin Carr.
Transit engineers in New Jersey are preparing to strike over failed contract negotiations. Correspondent Donna Warder reports the strike would leave many commuters with no way into the office.
Engineers who work for New Jersey Transit are threatening to walk off the job early Friday if the union that represents them can't work out sticking points with the agency. And if New Jersey Transit engineers are on strike, commuter trains will stop running. The main sticking points in contract negotiations have been wages and working conditions. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers and Trainmen says its members earn an average salary of $113,000 a year and says an agreement could be reached if the salary were boosted to $120,000 $270,000. New Jersey Transit officials dispute those figures and say the average salary is already $135,000, with the highest earners making more than $200,000. If engineers go on strike, New Jersey Transit says it'll increase bus service, but that could handle only 20% of rail customers. I'm Donna Warder.
That's our show for today, Thursday, May 15th, 2025. America in the Morning is produced by Alexander Hinton. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.